What's up, guys? This is my first video breaking down games um, and talking about sports. I've been sports betting for a long time now and decided to make a channel. And so, first game I'm going to break down is my favorite play for tonight, um, the 16th, the 15th of February. Um, and it's going to be the biggest game of the night. It's at 6 o'clock Central Time, which is where I am, which is about 45 minutes from tip off. And it's the Alabama Crimson Tide, the number one team in the land right now, at the Tennessee Volunteers, who have dropped to number 10 in the country after a couple of tough losses. The Vols, despite being the lower ranked and having this worst record, are 3-point favorite in the game, and that's what I'm going to break down. And so, looking at the two teams, obviously the Tide come in 22-3, undefeated in conference. Tennessee 19-6, reeling a bit. Started off 8-2. Uh, Actually started off 7-1 and have dropped three of their last four. They lost on the road at Florida about a week and a half ago. Were able to sneak one out against Auburn. And then the last two games lost on back to back buzzer beaters at Vanderbilt and at home against Missouri on two real different games. So, big, big, big game tonight for the Volunteers. Obviously, it looks like the conference is pretty much over in terms of the champion race. Alabama 12-0 undefeated. Nobody's going to catch them regardless, but a big game for Tennessee, confidence wise, and a big game for them um, going into the tournament. Hopefully, trying to get a higher seed. They're probably on the borderline between a 2 and a 3 right now. This would go a long way in getting them maybe to that 2 line. They've had a great year, but a couple of really not just tough losses, but losses to teams that they really should beat. Um, and so when you look at the Ken Palm rankings, Alabama actually second in the Ken Palm rankings, and Tennessee is fifth, a little bit closer than their AP rankings or coaches poll rankings would indicate. Um, and you look at Alabama, a team that really, really likes to shoot the three. They don't take almost any mid-range jump shots. That seems to be a trend in college basketball, but Alabama takes it to an extreme. They like paint touches, things at the rim, and threes. And threes being a big part of that, they shoot it at a very high percentage. Taking a look at their stats on the year, um, you can see they've got a number of dudes who shoot 40 or close to 40%. Obviously, Brandon Miller, their best player, 43. Mark Sears, nearly 40. Quinterly's at 35. Amari Burnett is near 35. So they've got a lot of dudes who can shoot the ball. Ryan Griffin as well, 35. And when you look at Tennessee, what they do best is defend the 3 point line. They're the number one team in the country defending the 3 point line. They allow teams to shoot just above 24% from three on the year, and that's including the last couple games, the last four games where three of them they've lost to all three to unranked opponents. Um, Now, Alabama, appears to be a pretty good shooting team on the surface, and they are a good shooting team. They've got a lot of guys who can shoot it, and they take a ton of threes. But if you look deeper into the numbers and you factor it out and look at road games since Alabama has started conference play, and the reason I say started conference play is they did have one non-conference game stuck in the middle there where they got absolutely destroyed by Oklahoma. When you look at just those road games since conference started, they are just shooting 30.5% from three as a team. And couple that with, again, Tennessee giving up just about 24%, and that's going to be a big factor tonight. Alabama um, shooting the three ball and Tennessee's ability to defend the 3 point line. Tennessee in general has an outstanding defense. They're the number one defensive team in the country, according to Ken Palm. They are the number one team in effective field goal percentage allowed, number 1 in 3-point percentage allowed, as I mentioned, and number 9 in 2-point percentage allowed. So they do a really good job overall. They create a lot of turnovers. They're 13th in the country in steals per game. And another area where they're really good that factors in both offensively and defensively is rebounding margin. And that's an area that Alabama really tends to have an advantage against most teams in conference. They're a good rebounding team, but Tennessee's elite. Tennessee is 7th in the country in rebounding margin at over 8 per game. That means they out rebound their opponent by over 8 per game. They crash the boards on offense and create a lot of extra possessions, and they do a good job of not allowing teams to get second shots. When you look at personnel, obviously Alabama has their outstanding freshman Brandon Miller, right? 18.8 points per game. He averages close to a little over 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and like I showed, he shoots about 43% from 3. Outstanding for a freshman. He's going to be a high draft pick in the NBA. 6'9", he's long as could be. He can attack the basket. Does a lot of things good. And then they've got Mark Sears, their second leading scorer, 14 points per game, just under 4 rebounds and 3 assists. And he also shoots the ball really well from 3, near 40%. Both those guys, Miller and Sears, shoot over 81% from the free throw line as well. They've got a couple other guys, but those seem to be their 2 main guys. Miller is probably their best overall player. Sears is likely their most important player. He makes them go. Ball tends to be in his hands down the stretch, and they have him making decisions. Nate Oates trusts him late in games. And then one other dark horse in here, Javon Quinterly. Obviously, he's been around for a while, right? Quinterly was a big part of that run last year to the Elite Eight. He's a senior guard, not one of the top scorers on the team, but he tends to have big games and show up in big moments when they need him the most. Looking on the other side at Tennessee, they do it a little bit more by committee. They have 6 guys averaging between 8.5 and 12.5 points per game on the season. Nobody averages more than 12.2, and that's Vescovi. He averages 12.2, shoots 35% from 3. He is a bit streaky from down beyond the arc. But the guy who makes it go for them is no doubt Zakai Ziegler. Ziegler, a sophomore, he's just 5'9", going to be the smallest player on the floor tonight for either team, but he is going to also be the most impactful. He averages near 11 points per game. He leads the team in assists. Shoots the ball from the free throw line well. He doesn't shoot a great percentage, largely because he hasn't shot the 3 ball well this year. Last season, shot it over 35%. Struggling a bit this season, but I expect him to come up big tonight. At home, in a big game. It's going to be a packed house. Obviously, you're going to be sold out in front of about 22,000 in Tennessee. And that's why I like the Volunteers, not just because of Ziegler and the well-roundedness of Tennessee, but I believe that in the long run, defense is going to win out here. And I think on the road, especially for Alabama, having to shoot the 3 ball against the number 1 defense in the country, it's going to be a tough night offensively for Alabama. They're going to make some runs. It's going to be a tight game, but I think Tennessee is going to have enough tonight. I think the public's going to be all over Alabama, number 1 team in the country. On the road, it's going to be a road dog tonight for the public, and I really like the Vols in this spot. If you look at the last 2 games, you can go back 4 games ago, actually, to Florida. That game, a spot where Tennessee had been playing really well. They were ranked number 2 in the country. Florida was unranked in a really important game for their NCAA tournament hopes. It's kind of a standalone game on a Wednesday. And Tennessee just couldn't score offensively. They dominated the glass against Florida, but could not put the ball in the basket, and that cost them. But you look at the last 2 games, and it's 2 games that if Tennessee makes one better decision down the stretch If Tennessee makes two more free throws, one more free throw really down the stretch, they probably win both those games. And even with all those mistakes, it took a buzzer beater in both games. Obviously, the Vanderbilt loss isn't a good look, but it was on the road, and weird things tend to happen. I mean, you look at Alabama. Alabama lost by 30 points to an Oklahoma team who is in last place or tied for last place now in the Big 12. Um, and so that was 2.5 weeks ago that happened. And that same Alabama team is now ranked number one in the country. So college basketball is a fluid game. Teams move up and down, and um, I think Tennessee's in a good spot tonight. But you think about those last four games. If Tennessee doesn't get beat at the buzzer, if they make free throws in their last two games, right, and uh, they win those two games, this line is likely a little bit bigger, right? It's likely 4.5. So I think there's some value there. Honestly, if you go back 3 weeks ago, and this game is played 3 weeks ago when Alabama is coming off that loss and Tennessee is ranked number two in the country, this line might be 6.5 or 7. So I think there's some value here on the spread at 3. I think um, even in a close game, Tennessee normally is a pretty good free throw shooting team down the stretch. I expect them to make free throws to close out the game tonight. I like the Vols to win by somewhere between 7 and 10 points. It'll be close throughout. It'll likely be close at halftime, but I like a full game play on the Volunteers at home, minus the 3. And I've already got that locked in myself. One thing I'll say is I'm never going to give out a play that I don't already have myself. I'm going to I may give out some opinions, but I'd always tell you um, if those are opinions or if I actually have something myself on the game. So, again, one play for tonight. I hope you guys like the breakdown. I look forward to doing more of them, and hopefully the Vols can get us all to the window tonight. So, go Volunteers.